She is terrified anytime he gets up, period. He's like, oh, watch out, watch out. And he's just walking off. And I'm thinking of things, you know, there's an electrical socket there, and there's an interesting, and I'm, well, he can have a go, he can get close to it. It'll be more interesting for him if he does. He can, if he falls, I'm doing things that she cannot stand. But I guess that's what we're supposed to do. They say something about, there was something she read in a book about men, I guess, this is so stereotypical, but men, I guess, are meant to hold their children any which way. They are always changing the way in which they're holding their children. And mothers always hold them exactly the same way. And they get used to that comfort, and they get used to that kind of anarchy from their father. It seems to be happening that way right now. It seems to be happening. I don't know whether that's real or not, but there you go. Books, 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 books. Everyone here reads. It's intimidating. You're all reading people. Yes?
You said something earlier when we were taking photographs about a goof in Dr. Bashir, I presume?
Oh, yes, there's a goof in Dr. Bashir, I presume. It's actually a horrendous one, so I don't really want to tell you, but I will, because it's my fault entirely. And it's something that only a technical actor like myself does. But we were having a scene where Dr. No was Dr. No was doing that with a gun. He turned around in the middle of the thing, and we were up in his, like, funny little place up in the thing. And I was trying to beg for my life and all of that stuff. And when he turns around and he goes, "You aren't going anywhere, Dr. Bashir," or whatever, I can visibly, if you look carefully at that point, be seen watching the camera to see past him, because I'm not sure it can see me. And we had already done 8 takes of that particular shot, and I didn't want to make us all have to do it again because of the fact I was standing in the wrong place. See, and then shift into a position so I could get them right there, and then delivered my line. It'll be very, very quick, but once you see it, you'll never be able to not see it. Because I can't watch it without seeing that now. It's just there for me. Yeah.
Earlier, yesterday, the other gentleman talked about some times you had been naughty.
What other gentleman?
And I was wondering if you cared to talk about being naughty.
Renee. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. He did. He yelled at me. Hypocritic. Yeah. He said, I remember very well, we were doing a scene which was a tough scene. It was because everybody was falling to pieces and everybody was like dying and everything, and we had to get all these, he had to get it on film. It's a tough situation. And for directors, I've learned, there's one nightmare, and then something goes wrong right at the very beginning of the day. A small, innocuous little butterfly flaps its wings. And the whole day just goes horribly, horribly down the toilet. And as a result of that, the show is $500,000 in debt. The actors are threatening to leave. The crew is fighting with each other, and people are getting fired. I mean, that can happen because the director gets one thing wrong at the beginning of one day. It's a weird situation. You end up there at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've been there in this situation like 3 or 4 times with different shows. And so for a novice director, which Renee was at the time, it was his 2nd or 3rd show, and he still felt he was learning stuff. It's a very panicky area because you get to about the 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon period, and it's the point when the whole day can turn. I don't know how to describe this. I hope you're keeping up with me, because if I'm making this clear, that there's a weird area that directors have to control. And people start arriving from the studio. They arrive from the studio onto the set. People you never see. The producers start arriving. Limos start pulling up. And these very important gentlemen in suits arrive. And you know they're there because the axe is about to fall on somebody. And often it's the director. In this case, it wasn't going to be because it was Renee. But nevertheless, it would have been somebody else. So there's always a danger. And this happens all the time. At this point, we were doing a scene where Bashir was very worried about being these people dying, and there was a situation in which either he was going to show his arrogance or he was going to show his fear or misery or something. And I think Renee, because he's at this time trying to keep everything together, all he's concerned about right now is keeping everything together. So he's got something he wants to tell me, and he says, "Sid, you're going to be miserable about this." And Sid goes, "No, I'm not." And he doesn't quite hear me. He's very happy to let it slide, because right now everything is falling to pieces, or could fall to pieces if he doesn't watch it, and we're going to the $500,000 sink. And he goes, yeah, no, good. And I went, no, I'm not going to do that. And that is the worst thing a director who in that situation can possibly hear, is an actor who starts to revolt because he wishes to do something else. And the director has got a position of responsibility, because they are supposed to know what everything means in the script. So they are supposed to know what they're aiming for. They want to have the whole thing be a tragedy, so everybody has got to in some way work towards that tragic ending, whether it's a little comic hiccup or whether it's some... And so within his scheme of things, I was already screwing it all up. And what makes it harder is that he'd already shot the ending, you know what I mean? So if I do that there, then he can't possibly get to what he's already shot, because the ending, the punchline of the joke has been decided. And now I'm going to change the joke. Actors do this an awful lot. I do it an awful lot, because I decide something about my script and I go, well, that's how I'm going to do it, because that's going to be interesting to me. And I was particularly keen on showing Bashir's arrogance. In the end, it all worked out, but it got to a point where he just looked at me seething, and he couldn't actually move. And then something snapped it felt like 5 hours later. We were just watching each other, like two chess pieces. And something snapped inside him, and he went, outside. And he walked out. And everyone looked at me and sort of giggled. It was like... And so, literally like a schoolboy, you'll know about this one, I was like, you know, remember when the teacher says, out, and all your friends look at you, and you're like, oh, you just wait here. I milked it. I made the most of that, so I did that, and all the crew were like, poor Sid, Renee's gone nuts. And he went nuts outside. He went nuts. He went boom. And I was like, I was fine, because I had all the crew. I'd already done the naughty schoolboy thing of going, just wait here, guys, I'll be back. So I knew I was okay. And he had to, in fact, settle with my arrogance, which I think in the end played. But it was one of those nightmare situations. So I was very naughty. But I'll do it again to him. Yeah.
Was there any feedback from Renee when you directed Business as Usual?
Feedback from Renee particularly, not that I know of. I didn't work much with Renee within the show, but I mean, I'm sure he said some pleasantry and very well meant, because I got very nice comments from a lot of the cast, but they felt always a little polite, so I was like, thank you very much, that's really sweet. On to the next, thank you. So I was, but Armin, on the other hand, couldn't stop. And I'm very grateful for that, because he probably got me my next job as a director, whenever that'll be.
Well, are you going to direct again this week?
Yeah, I will, but I don't know what it'll be. I'm hoping that I get some kind of big action show where I can spend loads of money on special effects. You know, that's what I really would like. I like the drama ones, but I would love to do that, because I'd like to see that's really hard to do, is I mean, I'm a theatre director by training, and so doing a dramatic piece is relatively straightforward in terms of keeping my sanity. But doing a big action piece is going to be really a test of my mettle in terms of my technique as a film director, because you've got to do all sorts of different stuff. One shot, I was trying to explain to somebody who came to LA, I guess he's my nephew to be, no, he's not really, he's just the boyfriend of my niece, I suppose. It's Nana's family anyway, and I've just inherited. I don't know what the relation is, but he has a relation to me, and I'm not sure what it is. But he wants to be an illustrator, and I was explaining to him, right, if you want to be an illustrator, a storyboard artist in the movies, then you've got to do this, this, and this, and it's extraordinary how many things. When you see one shot of the spaceship, like, for example, the Enterprise crashing in that movie, and it crashed through the forest, I should think it went on forever. That big crash went on forever, but it was probably made up of about 40 or 45 different cuts. So 45 or 45 different shots, each one taking half a day, went into making that thing. A lot of them were done in effects, but that is what's interesting to me, because all I remember coming out of a movie is the spaceship crashed. You know, that's all that happened. But actually, you've got to be there for every single. It was up from there and down from here, and from there is where we're looking at it. I'd like to do that. I'd like to see if I can survive that. And Renee owes me one, you know. He actually owes me a time when he can revolt. Michael Dorn's usually the one to revolt. He's usually the one who's like, I don't think my character would do that. Whatever it is. I mean, he's hilarious. He's we come in and sit down. And Michael's like, do you think that Worf would sit down? And the director was like, careful, because it's Michael, and obviously he's very powerful. And well, Michael, well, this is a lavatory, right? Yes. Well, maybe you should sit down. I mean, it's just a wild guess. Michael, I'll think about that. Okay, I'll sit down. Not quite the lavatory, but nevertheless. Michelle.
Do you still find Avery Brooks intimidating? Because if you do, I can't see you being naughty if he's directing.
No one's naughty when Mr. Brooks is directing. Avery is an extraordinary character. For those of you who don't know him in terms of conventions and stuff like that, he is, I don't know how to describe it. He's like a huge charisma. If you've seen him talk, for those of you who've seen him talk, it's a bit like going to a rally. You know? You've seen him do his stuff, and he's like, okay, man. You know what I mean? You dig? You know? And he's, hey, shh, shh. I want to tell you something right now. And people are like, okay. In 1957, January the 22nd, Martin Luther King Jr., and then he'll say this, and he'll go, but yes, 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 yes. And he talks like that on the show, and he calls everybody by his particular, he calls everybody by their second name. He's very old-fashioned like that. I mean, he knows every member of the crew by their second name, which is an unusual thing, because it's like knowing every person who works in this hotel, in terms of the kitchen, working in the lights, vacuuming the corridors. He'll meet the person coming along the corridor, he'll say, welcome, Mr. Gordensmish. And it's this, gentleman, and he's like, hi, Mr. Brooks. And he knows it. He knows the name. I mean, I know them as Blue and Ned and, but nevertheless, he does that. He's still intimidating, but he has his place. He's the teacher, He's like a teacher. I don't say that in terms of, we sit and learn from the Brooks. But he is like he teaches at the university, He teaches Shakespeare, and I know exactly how his students are. But
He comes across to me as a university professor.
yeah, that's what he is. That's what he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he does. He does that, and he directs a little like that. And he sits down. He's just like, I don't know. I'm learning that whole jazz thing. It's like a whole jazz language from the cab days, And it's a very cool, jivey, diggy sort of sound. It's different from me because I'm like from not a jivey, diggy sort of place. Yes.
Yesterday he had some rather moving stories from Renee and Andy about their most embarrassing moment. Can you give us one?
Boy, the most embarrassing. They got some experience to look back on. How they can say, well, I did Dirty Harry. I did Star Trek. Embarrassing moment as an actor. There are so many, what would be to me, if I hadn't been an actor, which I haven't been for very long, so many amazingly humiliating moments by the minute on working on a set, I mean, just getting fitted for a costume, you know what I mean? It's just the most horrific experience you could possibly undergo.